Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute, but anyway, on my playlist I have something called a category on there called her story. And so basically what her story is her story about a woman's testimony. And so anyway, a few years ago we had an event that was titled Her Story, The Journey, which basically tells the story, the journey of a woman, her testimony of her life. And so I felt led to do another one this year, but before I started to prepare, I felt in my spirit that I needed to tell my story. So anyway, it dawned on me that I tell about different categories, but I never really tell my story. So anyway, about my particular story, my salvation. I got saved about 24 years ago. Um, Actually, it was like 1994, I believe it was. It was right after my third child, which is my daughter Janda Marie. She was just born. She was about 3 weeks old, I believe it was. But prior to that, for about a year, I had people that God would continuously send my way to sow seeds, to water, to plant, to plant and to nurture that seed. And I kept rejecting every time that He would send someone. I call myself, I guess, creating my own little religion, if you don't like something, on my own little doctrine. So I didn't really consider myself a Christian. I didn't really consider myself a Muslim or Jehovah's Witness. So what I would do was put these different aspects of what I liked together. And that's what I did. I became my own, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, naive, young, stupid, but just certain aspects of these different religions that I would pull together. But anyway, I would be working. I used to work at Walmart. And for some reason, I'm like, why everybody keep trying to tell me about Jesus? I grew up listening about Jesus, listening to his music. My people, my family would sing. We would go to church. But I never knew anything about a personal relationship. To me, God was like a bunch of rules. Our church was about, you don't do this, you do this, or you do this, or whatever. And I was under an impression that I could always just repent and be saved. And so anyway, for about a year, I would be working. Somebody would leave a tract, somebody would evangelize. And even one time I can remember being at work and some man came in backwards through a door and he was looking around. I worked at Walmart in a I can't remember, it was the men's section, kids section, but at that time Walmart, you had to just kind of like anyway, that's not what I'm trying to say, but anyway, and I kind of just noticed that he was really, really strange. And he was looking around, he turned around and he looked at me, and he was like, he came to me and he said, God has chosen you, something to that effect. And he kind of got on his knees. This is in a public place, okay? And I'm like, he got on his knees and he said that God had called me and chosen me. And I just got so tickled. He said, you've been chosen. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, for what? Anyway, so he ended up leaving. And then I had a cousin who had gotten saved and a friend, and she would always come and bring me books. And this one particular time, she told me, she said that, I've been ministering to you or coming to you, trying to tell you about Jesus. And she said, you keep rejecting me. She said, I'm going to pray for you. And when I pray for you, she said that God is going to show up and you're going to know without a shadow of a doubt that it's God. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to be praying for you too. So about 6 months later, I had gotten married. My husband was in the military, so he wasn't home. And I was going through a trial. I don't want to get the specifics of that, but anyway, he was actually my second husband. My first husband, we stayed married probably, we stayed married a year because we got a divorce. But he was overseas and we got married. He turned and went overseas, and by the time he came back, we were divorced. And so this is my second marriage, and he was in the military, and something happened. We went to Tennessee. We were transferred back here to South Carolina. But in the meantime, I came home. I had my baby here in North Carolina, and something happened that I can't remember exactly what happened. But either way, I had a situation that I was just getting really, really, my marriage at that time, we hadn't even been married months. and he was young, I was young, he was a lot younger than me. And I don't know what happened, but for some reason he just didn't come back home. He didn't come back to the apartment for a certain amount of days. The baby was sick, and I couldn't get in contact with him. And at the time, 1994, you didn't have a cell phone unless you had a lot of money. And so I didn't have a phone in the apartment that I left because we had all that stuff turned off, but the apartment was still there. And I had things there, but I didn't have my phone on. And so my baby got sick. I had a relative to come over. We took her to the hospital. She was having an allergic reaction. Her brain was swelling up, and I was trying to find the dad. Anyway, I found the dad, but it wasn't at his grandmama's or nobody. It was somewhere else, and you know what I mean. And that next day, man, it was just like, man, what have you done? You have been married once. You already had two kids. And it's like, even the one you with now, he's doing whatever he wants to, and you just had a baby. And prior to that, I was planning on going into the police force, and I got pregnant, and so that kind of stopped that. But anyway, it's like I just started being tormented in my mind because I wanted to go where I found out where he was, and I literally wanted to kill him. And it was like, you know what? This is what the enemy was saying in my mind. He was like, you've been married one time, that you screwed that up. You done married him, and you pregnant now. He over here and so and so. You can't go out like that. You can't go out like that. So leaving the hospital, this is how the devil will do. I had heard sometime prior where his ex-girlfriend used to live, and it was like, let me ride over there and see. So I told my cousin, I said, take me over here to this neighborhood and let me just see if he's there. Sure enough, that's where he was. Okay. So I went knocking on the door. They didn't open. And all I could see as I was going to that door, I wanted to cut his throat. They didn't open the door. That made me mad. So I left, got in the truck that he drove there. I had a key, and I left there. And I told my cousin, I said, take the babies home. And she was like, Kiba, get back in the car. And I'm like, no, if you don't go, then I'm going to cut you. And so anyway, she takes my kids home, and it came in my mind, you know what? This is a black truck. Let's take this truck. Let's drive, because this is really get it. And as I was leaving out, the police were coming in because they didn't call the cops on me. So I'm thinking, ha, ha, ha. And it came to me. It was like, why don't you drive it off the bridge? And I was like, you know what? That'll get him, because he loved his truck, had a booming system in his truck. And it was like, drive this truck off the bridge. And on my way there, it never dawned on me that I couldn't swim. It was nighttime. Nobody would know I was out here. And when I got to almost to where the bridge was, it's like I heard a voice say, woman, go home. Go home. Go home to your children. He's where he wants to be, and you can't change that. So I did go home, and I was just so depressed and oppressed at that time, and I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to kill myself. So in my thought, I said, well, you know what? I can't leave this baby here. My other two children were with my parents at the time. It was like, I can't leave this baby here. So I was going to smother this child, 3 weeks old, and then I was going to take pills. I was going to commit suicide. Right when I was getting ready to do it, and this is how off I was. I didn't consider myself a Christian. I didn't consider myself a Muslim. But I had this little record player, and I had, I can't remember who used to sing it, but it was a song, Jesus Would Work It Out If You Let Him. And I'm playing Christian music, and just so happened I look out the window, and I see these two ladies walking in my apartment complex, and I'm just looking, peeping through the window. And it's like she was down the street, and it was like wherever she was, she turned and looked right at me, and I saw her coming up the street, and she knocked on my door, and I'm thinking to myself, she said, I was in the trailer park. My husband and I have a new church, and we're out evangelizing. She said, I was in the trailer park, and she said the Holy Spirit told me I was in the wrong place to go to the apartments. And she said I went to one apartment. He was like, that's not it. And she looked down the street, and she came directly to my door, and she said, God said, now listen, he said, God said that he would work it out if you let him. If you let him. Okay, if you let him. And I'm sitting there thinking, that was what I was just playing. I watched her. I watched her like shocked, like she was stopped dead in her tracks. And she came to my door. And then I had the aha moment when my friend told me. She said that God said that you will know that it's him, that he's going to bring this back to your remembrance. You know without a shadow of a doubt that it was him. So my pastor's wife literally came to my door and said that God had sent her to my door and that he would work it out if I let him. And I didn't get saved exactly that day, but that was one of the moments that I knew that God was real, when it really came to me, that he came to me. And so, in all honesty, he sent his word. And his word, with those that are carrying the word, the living epistles, which happened to be my pastor and a relative of hers. And they were out evangelizing. And she came to my door and she told me how she got saved. And how she got saved was the same way, that right when she was about to commit suicide, that God sent someone to give her a prophetic word about her life. And so here it is, 2018, 24 years later. My daughter's 24. I have 6 children. I have 2 grandchildren and 1 on the way. And so, I want to share that testimony, that how God saved me. He literally, how we always say that, I chose God. No, God, he chose me and he saved me. And so from that time on, I've been, I don't want to say a member, because, we're those that know God and come into Christ. We're rightly set in place. And I believe God set me and he rightly placed me and joined me where he wanted me to be. And so, no, it hadn't always been easy. I am 24 years old in the Lord. And so, got a lot of healing things that have taken place, a lot of experiences, that I've had. And so, as part of my testimony, I want to share that. So a lot has been going on in my life in the last year or two when I started the videos, but I never even thought to share my specific testimony of my salvation. And so of how I come to Christ. And so when other people, I didn't have those, I guess, to where I just showed up at church and decided to get saved. No, actually, I had an experience prior to that I'll share a little bit later on, to when I was pregnant with my son, my first child, and I was with my sister in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and actually that was a supernatural, crazy experience that I did get saved there, but I ended up having to come back to North Carolina, and I was experiencing some visions and some dreams. And that at that time, people couldn't tell me. They didn't understand stuff like that. But anyway, that's how I got saved. That's my salvation, and I'm still with my with my pastors. God had told me when I had gotten saved that he had called me there to help them, and I didn't know anything about what that meant, to serve and to help them specifically. And I know that I'm called to ministry, but I think ministry, that's every day. I don't know anything about a platform or whatever, but that's every day. So, but my man of God, and my pastor and his wife, my kids literally grew up in the church. That's a whole nother story, because they've had some experiences like we all have had experience, and I'm waiting for them to get that encounter and that visitation, so they just won't worship or serve the God of their mother. They will serve the God of their God, that they will inherit the faith, and even a greater faith, and I'm believing that. So, but anyway, just want to share my testimony. That's it. Thank you. Like, subscribe to the channel.